So Insta360, which is known of course for their 360 cameras. This is their Insta360 One RS. This is the twin edition, and I talk a lot about this one right here. This is the Insta360. This is the X3 360 camera. And now a new product from Insta360. They are jumping into the gimbal space, and as you can see here, this is their latest product. This is the Insta360 FLOW 3-axis gimbal. And of course, when it comes to mobile gimbals, we got to talk about this one too, the Osmo Mobile 6. I am going to be coming out with a separate full comparison video between these two. So in this video, I will be talking more about the FLOW, the Insta360 FLOW, as well as all of the features that it does have to offer. And of course, if you guys do like this type of content, make sure you guys do subscribe so you know when I come out with the full comparison video. Now, with stabilization so good on mobile cameras, do you still need a gimbal? And the answer is still yes, if you are trying to get some specific types of shot, because there's nothing you can really do to replace how stable a gimbal gets your horizon. Now, when it comes to some of the action cameras out there, they do have that horizon leveling. There's not so much as far as mobile phone horizon leveling that I know of just yet that keeps it as good as some of the action cameras. So that's the reason why you'll still want to stabilize with a 3-axis gimbal. And to be honest with you, it took me a little while to want to carry around a phone gimbal with me, even though they've been around for a while, mainly because the phone cameras and the stabilization on there are so good. But there's definitely still a big difference with a stabilized footage using a gimbal, whether it's this one or some of the other ones, and just a handheld type of shot. Now, when I first unbox it, as you can see here, the shape of it definitely different than some of the existing gimbals on the market. It does at least flatten down a little bit better. It does have this kind of squared out rectangle shape to it. And as far as the mobile phone adapter, it does utilize very similar to what we have on the Osmo Mobile. It does have that phone clamp. Once you put your phone on there, all you do is open it up. And once you open up, it will automatically power on. As you can see here, it's in vertical mode. It's actually ready to go. If I want to switch that over to horizontal, just double tap there. Talking about the phone clamp, it would have been nice to integrate that into the gimbal some way or another. But what they did here is that they did bring a tripod into the actual handle of the gimbal. This I really appreciate. I hate carrying around that extra 1/4-20 tripod with me. It just adds a little bit more complexity. It adds another accessory you have to carry around. Here it is built into it. So if you want to stand this up on a table so you can do some tracking, if you want to be able to film yourself or just have a steady platform to film on, you have a tripod that is built into the handle. And there you go, super simple. Now, while a tripod is a big feature, I'm glad that they were able to still keep a 1/4-20 at the very bottom. Having that 1/4-20 screw allows you to hook up things like an extension pole. So if you wanted to get really high shots with your gimbal, and what I really like using that 1/4-20 for is hooking this up to my monopod. That way I can actually get some 360 panoramics with the FLOW gimbal. And that's also a new feature that we'll talk about later in this video. Now, when it comes to extending out this gimbal, I actually thought that the tripod was all we had, but kind of crazy to think that within this small little handle here, we have the tripod, and we also have this right here, an extension stick. So it allows you to then get further away from your subject or from myself. Now, besides this extension rod, what's nice is you can actually turn the top of the gimbal about 90 degrees. Gives you a little bit better angle, especially if you're out there vlogging. Now the camera can actually face back towards you. So they did add that little 90-degree hinge in there. Then when you're done, just collapse it and then put it right back down. Now, if you are a solo content creator, this definitely helps out, especially when you're out there vlogging and you don't always want to look at your camera. You can actually turn on the tracking mode so that whichever way you're kind of pointed at, if it's tracking your face, it'll always keep your head and your face in the middle of the screen. Also, if you're out there shooting and tracking a subject, I actually use this a bunch, tracking my kids while they're playing, and it makes it easy just to select the subject on screen and kind of point it at their direction, and the camera itself will start moving and following that subject around. One feature I really like on the FLOW compared to some of the other ones is this smart wheel at the very front where your thumb goes. This allows you to zoom in and out of your video or photo, and it gives you a little bit more control versus some of the other ones that have more of a toggle switch on the side. This one you're able to then just slowly scroll that wheel. And the one thing I do like about it is that if you are switching from a tele to a wide lens, using the scroll wheel, it'll automatically trigger that in the camera. Now, when it comes to battery life of the Flow, it's rated for about 12 hours of use. Pretty cool design-wise. They do have this clear plastic on the back, so it shows you all of electronics, all the stuff that's actually inside of the gimbal arm. Now, when it comes to charging the gimbal, there is a USB-C port right here on the handle. But what's really cool is that they include a secondary one here, which is actually an output. So if you want to keep your phone fully charged while you're using the gimbal, they actually include a little cable here to hook up to your phone. This is a USB-C to Lightning. Or if you just want to charge your phone up while you're in the field, you can actually charge it up and it's going to use the battery that's in the gimbal. And sticking with the backside of the gimbal, in this clear area, I couldn't see it at first, they put in a cold shoe mount. You open this little door, there's a cold shoe mount there, and that's really good for people that want to use external audio. Here I have the wireless Go 2. You can also use, of course, the DJI mic, but it's nice that they put in a cold shoe mount in there so that if you want to hook up the wire to your phone and have that external audio, you're able to do that without having to buy an additional accessory. Now, this cold shoe mount is not intended for a light because of the fact that if you have a light here, the light would just kind of be like whipping all over the place. It is meant for something like an external microphone, but Insta360 FLOW does have this accessory here, and it is an external light. There's actually a little notch here on the back of the clamp, so all you do is you clamp it to the phone holder. The one thing cool about the light is that you do have 3 different temperatures. As you can see here, you have 3 different temperatures you can cycle through, as well as 3 different power outputs. Now, I do like the fact that Insta360 does have accessories like this, but again, it's another thing that you have to carry with you and you might misplace. It would be nice in possibly their next version to integrate a light somewhere into the gimbal so you're not carrying around another one of these smaller accessories. Now, for the most part, those are a lot of the new features that are a little bit different than some of the other gimbals out there. When it comes to the actual shooting modes, those are all still pretty standard here on the Flow. There's actually 4 different modes you're able to cycle through right here on the very front. The first mode we have is auto, and with auto, the roll axis is actually locked, as you can see right here, but we do still have the tilt. It'll still tilt with you. Next mode we have is follow mode, which is pretty much similar as auto, and to change the mode, you just actually swipe your hand across. Now we are in follow mode. The difference here is that we still have that roll axis locked, but with auto, it does change the sensitivity of the motors depending on how it's moving. But as far as follow mode, you do have that same locked roll axis here, but you still have the ability to tilt. Next mode we have is the pan follow, which locks your pan as well as your tilt. Now, the difference here with the tilt, as you can see, it doesn't move too much, but with the tilt being locked and this style gimbal, the Osmo Mobile 6 actually struggles with this too. You cannot go too far because of the motor location. That's the one disadvantage with some of these smaller gimbals, is that you kind of sacrifice the size for motor placement on the gimbals. And the last one we have is FPV. So if you want to get that kind of fluid movement, as you can see here, it is actually following the movements of the gimbal. The one mode I use a lot on this gimbal, as well as some of the other ones, is the lock mode, and that's basically holding down that trigger. So if you want to do something where you're just going in a straight line and you want to have everything locked off and have the gimbal and the camera just point in that one direction, all you do is set up your shot, hold the trigger down, it'll now put it into lock mode, and that way you just go straight, and even if you move a little bit just like that, or even tilt left to right, the camera will stay nice and straight. Now, as far as in-app shooting modes, some of the options you do have is pan photo, and this is actually something I used when I was doing some interior real estate shots. I talked a little bit about that earlier, hooking this up to a monopod, sticking it in the middle of the room, and now you're able to get those 360 shots. So it kind of gives you that simulation. If you were to have something like a 360 camera in the room, this kind of gives you something very similar to it. Next mode we have is photo mode, and within photo mode, you are able to shoot 4:3, 16:9, full, or as well as 1:1. So if that's square aspect ratio. Now, when it comes to video, of course, this is also based on some of your camera options on your phone. I like to shoot in everything from like 4K 30, 4K 60, depending on what type of environment I'm shooting in, because I like to normally shoot at least 60 to have that ability to slow down that footage in post. What's nice, of course, is that you still have full manual control. So if you want to go from auto to manual and you're shooting at something like 4K 60 and you want to have that 180-degree rule, I can actually change my shutter speed now to something like 120 and also have my ISO set. So you do have those manual controls in the app. Next option we have is slow motion. You can shoot in slow motion 1080p, 120 or 240. Like I mentioned, it's really based on the phone capabilities, as well as 720p. You can do that in 120 as well as in 240. After slow motion, we do have the ability to shoot in widescreen mode, as well as, of course, things like time lapse, time shift, and live mode. So you do have some of those standard ones that we have on a lot of other gimbals. That is all built into the app here on the Insta360 FLOW. One thing that's pretty cool that they do have, and a lot of other companies also implement this into the app, is they call it the Shot Genie, which gives you a bunch of different tutorials and ways to shoot a specific scene. You can actually pick a different theme and it'll show you a bunch of different shots you're gonna wanna get while you're in these situations. Now, along with the 360 pano that I did use a lot, some of the other things you're able to do with the FLOW app is get things like time shift, motion time lapse, barrel roll, as well as the dolly zoom, where you're actually pulling out from the subject while at the same time you're zooming in. And that's where that scroll bar or scroll wheel kind of comes into play. So depending on how you use your mobile phone, how you use your camera and your video, it's something that it's a big trade-off. It is, do I want to carry around another product with me that gives me that extra stabilization or not, right? Do you going to use the footage for something that you really need it nice and steady? Or are you just trying to get something really quick and dirty and don't really worry too much about keeping that horizon straight or whatever it might be? Like I mentioned earlier, I am going to go through in a separate video a full comparison between the FLOW and the Osmo Mobile 6. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. This is Ultra Saucio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.